Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gail Carson, that's Gayle, GailCarson13 @gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Welcome, everybody, to our show, Women in Business. And I have a great guest for you today, Dr. Maria Church. She's a CSP, as I am too. And for those of you who don't know, that's a certified speaking professional and a CPC. She's a speaker, consultant, and executive coach. And as CEO of Dr. Maria Church International, including government and corporate divisions and Leadership Development University, she specializes in organizational culture, change, agility, and leadership development. With over 25 years working for Fortune 500, local government, nonprofit, and academia. Her 10th anniversary edition of LoveBased Leadership, the model for leading with strength, grace, and authenticity, was released in December 2020. And so you can find her at drmariachurch.com. Well, welcome, Maria. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail, for the invitation.
No problem. Well, I'm glad to see that you're a CSP because I honor those initials very much, and I appreciate them. It's interesting that you talk about love-based leadership because we are talking about so many things that have happened in the past year, and the thought of having love-based leadership is kind of oxymoron, since a lot of people don't know what they're doing from one minute to the next. So tell us about the culture work that you do with local governments, because they're having a tough time of it right now.
Yeah, local governments, big government, and of course, private organizations are really having a hard time right now, as are the individuals. We've been so immersed with fear and steeped in fear for so long that I think we've just kind of had it up to our eyeballs with fear and are looking for, another way, a better way, a healthier way. And to that end, local governments, have really, I think they've got kind of a bad rap sometimes because they're lumped in with the thought the same as big government, or federal government. And the local governments really are exactly as it sounds. They're the local folks. They're your cities and counties, and they're working in the communities, and their primary function is to help make that community even better. And so when we talk about leading with love or love-based leadership as opposed to fear, local governments are so ready, willing, and able to embrace that concept because they really do the work that they do out of love and out of a desire to serve, and again, making the community better. So the work that we've been doing in local governments is just so cool, Gail. We work with local governments to really help them intentionally and strategically shape their cultures and to shape those workplace cultures in a way that really represents not only who they are, but who they want to be as an organization. And we go deep and we go wide with our local government clients. Again, really articulating who they are and who they want to be as an organization, looking at their culture, everything from their why to their non-negotiable values, their point of view about how they do their why. And we really look to align their practices and their behaviors and their actions with their why they get out of bed on Monday mornings and go to work.
But don't you find differences in local governments? I mean, I would think that there are some governments that operate really well, and there are others that, there's a lot of dissent there. So have you found differences within local governments?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I kind of to simplify it, I'd say there's a lot of sort of the old school workplace cultures or the old school ideology of heavily steeped bureaucracy. And, I find, and I'll be honest and transparent with you, I worked in local government early on in my career, and I oftentimes used bureaucracy when I didn't want to deal with a member of the public that I thought was being nasty or ugly. So I'd hide behind that veil or that curtain of bureaucracy, like, nope, we can't do it. It's against our policy, blah, blah, blah. And so I find that there's, some local govs that are really steeped into that heavy bureaucratic mindset. And then there are other ones that are just so, what do I want to use the word, innovative, and the desire to be innovative and flexible and malleable, which is so not like the typical mindset of local government. So yes, they're absolutely different kinds. And I still think that a lot of the local govs, probably like a lot of private organizations still too, are finding themselves working in silos, where they're not necessarily cooperating or communicating or even collaborating with other departments to really see that bigger picture, the looking at it from a systems thinking perspective about how all of the pieces are interconnected. And so it gets very detrimental to local govs as well as private organizations that really function within their silos. And so I unfortunately, I still see a lot of that happening today.
So tell us where your book, LoveBased Leadership, the model for strength, grace, and authenticity. And of course, authenticity has become a buzzword for the last many years. Where does that fit into all of this, and how does it help?
Yeah, so I really firmly believe that we either lead or approach our lives from a place of love or fear. And from a leadership perspective, when one leads with love instead of fear and really chooses a love-based approach, I believe that leaders that choose a love-based approach are really very mindful and aware and very in tune to other people within their team and help to create an environment that's conducive to innovation and conducive to collaboration and deeper communication that really moves from sort of information distribution kind of communication to really truly communicating and connecting with one another. And so when people really choose to lead from a love approach, again, it's just much more mindful in creating that kind of an atmosphere. And especially when it comes to an atmosphere of innovation, because you cannot innovate if you're in an environment or a workplace culture that is really fear-based.
Well, I'm going to ask you, I'm not sure what the answer is going to be, but how does this model work in the workplace, and what are the differences that you see between government and corporations and things like that? You are working with different entities, and there's got to be diversity in the way they approach all of this.
Yes, absolutely. I think beyond the obvious of being financial stewards of the constituents and the public's money, which is where local government are, they're both industries of people. And so as human beings, we have some similarities as you said, some differences, especially in these different industries and their workplace cultures. What I find some of the differences are in how love-based leadership fits in is, like I said, I started my early on in my career in local gov, and then I actually went to work for a Fortune 500 company where I stayed for 15 years leading their sales and marketing division. So I was heavily steeped in corporate America during those years. And what I found, Gail, is that my experience of local government, and one of the reasons that I primarily work with local govs today, is that a lot of the people that show up in the workplace in local government show up with both their heads and their hearts. And that's a powerful combination, to show up with both your head and your heart. Whereas my experience in corporate America, that wasn't always the case of the masses. Of course, there were individuals that showed up at the workplace and corporate with both their head and their heart, but not like the vast majority of people that I've experienced that show up at local government.
That's really interesting to know, Maria, because I would think, having dealt with many of local governments, that it would be the opposite. But it's heartwarming to see that because, I truly believe people do not get up and say, let's see how miserable we can treat people today.
Right.
I mean, I think they're all trying to do a really great job. But, sometimes there are rules and regulations and so forth that kind of put you in this box that you can't get out of. So what have you seen? I hate this word pivoted, but I'm going to ask you, how has your business pivoted this year? Because we've all had to pivot and we're going to continue to pivot for at least the next 6 months. So what, what did you do?
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. I mean, it's terrifying and it's exciting, right? We can't hold one emotion at the same time, but we sure can go back and forth very quickly from one to the other. And of course, like so many of our CSP colleagues for sure, and many of us that are consulting, in training and coaching and that kind of stuff, we've been doing that in person with the occasional virtual. And of course, when COVID hit and everybody had their shutdown orders and their stay-at-home orders, local government was especially hit hard because, a lot of their tax base, a lot of their revenue is tax.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. So there was, I saw a real panic, not just with the virus, but with the short-term and the long-term effects from a fiscal perspective from my local government clients. And so one of the things we did was, really looking at how we're currently working with our clients and how we serve them. And again, we do it in a variety of ways through coaching and consulting and training. And how can we continue to deliver that same kind of quality, but in a way that's less expensive, so at a lower cost? Because again, finances and their fiscal, outcome was still unknown at that point. And still deliver great quality service, again, at a less expensive and a more cost affordable option. And so, pulled the team together at the beginning, when we were all a little shell shocked and said, all right, what do we do really well? What do we enjoy doing? What do we not enjoy doing? And how can we innovate, around this and bring in something that we haven't done? And so we really determined that what we do really, really well is help to develop leaders and help to develop organizations. And so we looked at how can we do that in a virtual environment. And Gail, it was so exciting because, like you, I've been doing this work for quite a while. I went into my file folder or my file box. Yes, I still have a hard, firm steel box. And went into that file cabinet and I pulled out all of our training and development work that we've done over the last 10 years. And I sorted it into stacks, thinking I'm going to take our 12-month leadership development program and just do like a 12-week online program is what my initial thought was. And when I realized how much content we had over the last 10 years, I sorted them into 3 stacks, basically sort of like beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and realized that we have done so much work over the last decade that it was far beyond just a 12-week program. And so what we've developed is actually Leadership Development University. And
I was going to ask you about that. Where does this fit into all of that?
Yes. So what started off as just a 12-week program has now become into this full-fledged Leadership Development Online University. And so what we've done is we've created, at this point, 3 tracks of learning and development, one for supervisors and emerging leaders, one for managers and mid-level managers, and one for executives. And we created this and basically organized it into 12-week programs online. And so what's really cool about this university is that it is on-demand learning, but the cohort from the organization starts and stops at the same 12-week period of time so that they're all together. And then each week, of course, is a different content, and that's learning on demand. in conjunction with that, we've provided, because we know that our real-time interactions with our clients have been really where a lot of the profound learning has happened. So we actually have included like an hour of Q&A live each week to talk about the content and to take it a little deeper. And then, based on our experience, we know that that individual one-on-one leadership coaching has also been very profound for people to get really granular with the content. And so we've actually also included individual coaching sessions for each one of our participants going through that 12-week program. So it's really a hybrid. It's an on-demand and also real-time, all done in a virtual environment. And I'll tell you, Gail, this is some of the work that I'm most proud of not only that I've done, but my team has done.
But are you using the same curriculum for both corporations and governments?
Yes, when it comes to leadership competencies. And what's really great is our team is comprised of in fact, my lead trainer has been doing learning and development in local governments her entire career. So, 20 some years working in local government. And of course, I worked for 15 years for Fortune 500. So it's really awesome that we can bring both perspectives when we talk about really bringing this to life and bringing real world examples into the discussion. But the leadership competencies are leadership competencies, and that's regardless of what your industry is. There are just some really foundational leadership competencies. But then
that's true. That's true. I mean, our president, I'm on the ambassadors board for Nova Southeastern University, and our president was a former city official, and he runs that university unbelievably. I mean, we got through the pandemic. They've had a banner year of fundraising. It's very innovative. It's very entrepreneurial. It's just amazing. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned this year? And I'm sure there have been many.
Yeah, I think obviously transparency is probably one of the greatest lessons. And I think it's also one of the greatest gifts that we've gotten out of the horrific experience that so many people have had with COVID. And when I say transparency, I don't mean the forced kind of superficial, obligatory transparency. I mean the real, authentic transparency. For instance, we see our bosses or our colleagues in a certain light at work and with a certain facade, for lack of a better term. Over the last several months, we have seen our bosses and our colleagues in their home environment, fully authentic, fully transparent, with the dog barking or the child coming in when you're in a meeting who's hungry, legitimately hungry, or the doorbell ringing with the FedEx delivery or the cat jumping on your desk. We're seeing people as people. And I think that this is a great lesson in truly connecting with one another as human beings and seeing each other truly authentic and completely transparent. And I hope that this lesson, this enlightenment, so to speak, that we've experienced over the last several months, I hope that this, especially from a leadership perspective, that this carries on into the future, especially once we start gathering again in the physical workspace, because I believe that this transparency is going to be super important to continue, and this authenticity to a really vibrant workplace.
I so agree with you. I mean, I'm sitting here doing this radio show and there's a cat on my lap right now because the minute I sit down, this cat is on my lap. I have one that likes to be by my side, but this one likes to be on my lap. And, it is interesting to see how people have kind of rolled with the interruptions. I think there was a thing on line today about a CNN reporter who was doing this big interview with this big guy, and the dog started barking with the big guy, not with her. So, it's just the way it is, and we have to acknowledge it, that we're all human and things go on in our lives that you can't predict. So, right. Other than the budgets, what are the biggest challenges that you find your clients have right now?
Interesting. And I just did a private coaching session right before we hopped on here. I think, and this particular client is new to the organization, just started, I think, like during COVID, which would be such a huge challenge. And I think that one of the biggest challenges I'm seeing is the relationship building. Even though we have this transparency, and a heightened empathy is another thing that I've seen this year. But I think even with that, as human beings, we are still craving that true connection, which oftentimes just seems to happen in person, you know? And so I'm seeing right now that one of the big challenges is relationship building, especially for new people within the organization, because there is still this barrier right now of the computer screen. So I think people are really hungry and desire to be in the same physical space right now, a lot in the organizations.
Wow. Well, we only have a few minutes left, Maria, and I want to make sure people know that you are offering this gift of, you call it Dr. Maria's favorite perception shifting activities. And
Yes.
so if they go to your website, which is drmariachurch.com/action guide form, they'll find it there. Do you want to comment on that? Do you want to comment on how people can reach you and get in touch with you and learn more about what you have to offer?
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And if you don't remember all the URL, you can certainly get it. There's a link right on the main page for this action guide on drmariachurch.com. These are my favorite perception shifting activities. And, you know, I've done a lot of leadership development over the years. I've taught a lot of classes, but I firmly believe that the ability to shift our perceptions and our perspectives is one of the most powerful tools in our leadership toolbox. And so I have put together some of my favorites, some of my clients' favorites, super simple activities that people can do by themselves or also with their team. I think it's a lot more fun to do these activities with their team. So yeah, I'm so happy to give that away, and it's been a very, very popular giveaway.
Fantastic. And then they can get in touch with you by going to your website, Dr. Maria Church, CHURCH.com, correct?
Yes, and there's a way to connect with me there. And also my email address is maria@drmariachurch.com. And always happy to hear about people's love-based leadership experiences or to answer questions as time permits as well.
And remember, it's DR. It's not the full doctor. It's drmariachurch.com. I want to invite everybody to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Spunky Old Broad. I hope you go to my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, sign up for my newsletter, which is delivered to your inbox every Monday. We have a store there with my gifts and my coffee cups and my clothing and things like that. And we have my online programs at sobuniversity.com. So hopefully you're going to take advantage of all of that. Maria, you know, it's really interesting to see everything that you're doing and knowing that there's not just one component to it. There's training, there's coaching, there's studying, there's all of that. And that's what brings someone to success. It's not just having somebody come in and say to you, oh, let's do this, and then nothing happens. It's following through, which is so important. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I commend you for that.
Well,
so
thank you.
Again, if you go to her website, drmariachurch.com, look for the link for her perception shifting activities. You can email her directly at maria@drmariachurch.com. There's just a whole bunch of ways to get in touch with her. And wow, this has been so nice. And knowing that you're a fellow CSP, and one of these days we're going to get back to a national speakers convention, but I am not going to the virtual, to the in-person Atlanta program. It's just too soon for me. I still haven't gotten my vaccine, although I'm on the list.
Good.
And, you know, so hopefully we'll meet and connect at one of the conferences, because this has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much, Maria, for being with us today.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to actually shaking your hand someday.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gailcarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.